What's going on, guys? Welcome on back to Second and Short. I am Tyler Louder. He is Aaron Ben. Aaron, how you doing today?
I'm great. I'm so pumped for the season to start, man. I'm so excited to see the Texans lose their first game of the season. Can't wait.
Yeah, and this episode is going to be going up the day the season starts. So this is the first time that we have been an NFL podcast during a season. So I'm very excited for this. And we thought, what better way to end our off season of podcasts and discussions than with talking about the defending Super Bowl champions, the opening night, guys that are going to go out there and put on a show for us. Hopefully, especially for you. You're hoping that Patrick Mahomes balls out tonight.
Oh yeah, I got to see some magic from what is it? What did he want his nickname to be, Mr. Showtime, or what was that?
Something like that.
Yeah.
But you know what? At this point in stage of his career where he's so young and so good and he's just going to keep getting better, he can tell us he wants his nickname to be anything. And I'll be like, all right, cool, man.
Yeah, eat your steak with whatever ketchup or mustard you want on it.
Alrighty, well, that's our episode right there. We're going to be talking about the contender of the Kansas City Chiefs, like we said. So, Aaron, let's go over their 2019 season before we dive into their future and everything.
All right, so the 2019 season, well, we already know the ending. They won the Super Bowl. They started off hot, started off 4-0, including a Week 3 win over the eventual number 1 seeded Ravens. And they went their next 6 games, kind of had a cold streak. They only won 2 and lost 4, including 3 losses to AFC South teams, one of them being my Titans. And they also lost to the Packers, who also went 13-3. They finished the season on a 6-game winning streak, and you remember they got the first round bye by virtue of the Patriots losing to the Dolphins in that super surprising game in Week 17. And then in the playoffs, 3 games in a row they came from behind to win. Came back from 24 points down against the Texans. Came back from 10 points down against both the Titans and the Niners, and they took home their Chiefs' first championship in 50 years.
In those 3 playoff games, they scored 117 points in 3 games.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. The offense, it was unstoppable.
Yeah, and everything was just working. And they had Damian Williams, who was just balling out in the playoffs, and then it was getting everybody this hey, Chiefs don't need to draft a running back. They're fine. They're going to be good. And then we fast forward to the draft after they get that Super Bowl win, and the Chiefs, what do? They take a running back anyways. At number 32, they go out and they get electric LSU running back, the guy that can do it all, CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And this guy was looked at as all right, well, he's going to spend some time with Damian Williams, so probably take over. And then all of a sudden, the opt-outs happen. Damian Williams is gone. And it's all right, well, good thing they actually went out and drafted a running back now.
Yeah, with time, it just looks like a smarter and smarter move. And I mean, in my opinion, Helaire is a lot better. He's a much better player. Even though he's a rookie, he's a much better player than Damian Williams. I never really saw Williams as more than a serviceable starter, to be honest.
Well, since we're already there, there's no transition because we're already inside the building, but let's talk about this offensive unit. Let's talk about one of the best offenses in the NFL. There's a reason why these guys are a favorite to win the Super Bowl again this year. And it's not because, they get elite sack numbers or they cause a ton of turnovers or they shut all the receivers down. It's because of their offense and how electric they can be. And we see that from not just Patrick Mahomes. Yes, we get it. He's great. Everybody says that potentially he can be the future GOAT. I think pump your brakes. Let's get there first. Enjoy your ride. But I mean, you add in somebody like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who is getting compared to a Brian Westbrook. That might be because he catches the ball and Andy Reid. So then they just tie those things together. It's kind of like if there's a white slot wide receiver, everybody goes, Belichick will love him. It's okay. I get, yeah, he's had that in the past. But then you move on, and somebody that I think is one of the best receivers in the league. And we're only going to be talking about his on-the-field performance. We're going to talk about the person himself. But the player, Tyreek Hill, is phenomenal.
Well, I mean, that entire wide receiving core is probably the fastest wide receiver core in the Midwest. Tyreek Hill is, I mean, he's the cheetah. Then you got Mecole Hardman and Sammy Watkins. They've all got blazing speed. I mean, you've seen, I don't know how many times you've seen Patrick Mahomes drop back, roll out, and then find, usually it's Tyreek Hill, but one of those guys is always down the field, like wide open. No one's within 10 yards of him. And then add to that wide receiving core, one of the best tight ends in the game with Travis Kelce. And I mean, he's always got someone to throw it to.
Yeah, Kelce is one of those guys who can like do it all. He's a better pass catcher than he is blocker, but it's not like he's a teeter-totter and he's just only one side. Like he balances himself out pretty well, I'd say, compared to most tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, you don't get to be one of the best tight ends in the league without also being able to block. I mean, people always talked about how Rob Gronkowski was so great catching the ball, scoring touchdowns and everything, but when he was blocking, he was one of the best blockers on the field. So Travis Kelce is not as good a blocker as Gronkowski, but he's no slouch.
And then on top of that, we move to the one group of the Chiefs offense that never gets talked about, and it's their offensive line. Everybody talks about the future in Patrick Mahomes. They got this electric rookie. The wide receiving group is fast as, and then they got Travis Kelce who can do it all. But this offensive line, I mean, they're retaining both their tackles. They added in a brand new guard.
Well, Kelechi Osemele is going to probably come in and you're going to see him start there. They had drafted one of the top linemen, and well, not one of the top, but a pretty high regarded lineman in the draft is Lucas Niang from TCU, but he has opted out this season as well. But they've also added Mike Remmers, who's a veteran lineman. He's got some experience in the league. He's good depth. I mean, he's not gonna be your like franchise left tackle, but he's also some pretty good depth there on the line. So line is looking pretty good going into this season.
Yeah, Mike Remmers is one of those guys that, I mean, he has a lot of starts in the NFL. He's an undrafted free agent. He played in the Super Bowl with Carolina in 2015, but he was the big responsibility on why Von Miller did so well. Funny enough, we talk about Remmers, Von Miller gets brought up. He's now out for the season, which just makes this Chiefs offensive unit, have less to worry about. And we're going to let you know right now, Chiefs fans, we're going to apologize. Everybody that we talk about or every team that we talk about, something bad seems to happen.
Yeah. How many players have we jinxed so far? Gerald McCoy, Prince Amukamara, HaHa Clinton-Dix, and now Von Miller. That's all in the last 14 days that we have talked about a player and something's happened this close. Yeah, I feel kind of bad.
Well, I think we're fine here. Maybe it's going to be, here's the thing. They already had somebody opt out that was supposed to be a starter for them, their offensive lineman rookie, Niang that you said. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's their bad. And let's talk more about this offense and how they did last year. Now, this offense was number 2 in the NFL across this rankings that I get from lineups. Number 5 in points, number 6 in total yards. Their only flaw is that they score too fast. That's the craziest thing about this right now. They finished 27th in time of possession. And it's because they score so fast that other teams have an ability to get more points on them because this defense isn't their strongest suit. And I think that is actually an issue that they need to address. I know that sounds silly. It's wasn't the point to score as fast as possible. But if you look back, I mean, if you watch somebody like Tom Brady, and I've seen this multiple times, that's why I'm using him. Just take a 12-play drive that drains 8-9 minutes off the clock. The longer you have the ball in offense, the less time the other team does. That's just how math works in my head.
That's quick maths, man.
Yeah, that's quick math. Exactly. And so that right there is what I think is most important for them is they need to be able to sustain drives longer. Now, such a counterintuitive argument because they're going to make big plays and they're going to finish drives fast. I mean, we're going to see Tyreek Hill score 3 or 4 50-yard plus touchdowns. It's going to happen. Sammy Watkins is going to get out of nowhere. He'll have a 93-yard touchdown one week. But when they have the opportunity to move the ball and use their checkdowns and just kind of drag this along, it can prevent teams like the Texans in the playoffs from dropping 30-plus points on them.
Exactly. And I mean, you also want to sustain those drives to kind of tire out the opposing defense as well. And as long as we're talking about defense, what do you think about their defense this year, Tyler? I mean, they were awful in 2018. That was a big part of them losing to the Patriots in the championship, in the AFC championship. And then under Steve Spagnuolo last year, they made a huge improvement. How do you think they're looking going into this year?
I would like them to be stronger at cornerback. That's a place that I wanted them to address in the draft or in free agency. However, due to how things were falling for them and where they needed to put money in, they didn't have the ability to do all those things. Frank Clark has a full year now under his belt with this organization. And I know like some elite players should be able to transition in a couple months, but let's be honest, that is very hard to do when you get traded and then 3 months later you're playing in a brand new system that you have to be ready for. I think Frank Clark having that full year of being ready is great for this team. Chris Jones, them getting him back is a huge positive for them. And then you look at some of their guys that they got that are going to be death pieces, like Alex Okafor has been a good pass rusher for the Saints back in the day, and Taco Charlton is one of those guys who was supposed to be the counterpart to DeMarcus Lawrence over in Dallas, and for some reason didn't put it together. However, we see these guys that are like highly touted pass rushers kind of need to go to a second or third team. They just kind of move around, and once they hit a different team, they just kind of play different. And so that could be a situation here where they get this efficient play out of these guys coming over from different teams over the past couple of years. Now, the one thing that they did address in the draft that I thought was a great add for them was the addition of linebacker Willie Gay Jr. out of Mississippi State. He's got great size, 6'1", 243. He checks all the boxes when you're looking at like what you want from like a tackling machine. And that's what he's going to be at the end of the day, is a guy that's going to make those open field tackles. He's pretty good at reading defenses. Eventually, a building block for them in this defensive unit. I think that's a big need for them, is to get an established linebacker, like a leader at that second level. Because they already have it last thing, because they already have it with Chris Jones on the defensive line and kind of with Tyrann Mathieu in the backfield.
Yeah, I was just going to say, re-signing Chris Jones was a huge move during the offseason. And Tyrann Mathieu, I mean, going into the second year there, he's a great presence, great player in the backfield. And like you said, they need someone to step up and be that superstar linebacker. And they need to, like, the one weakness I kind of see, not one weakness, but like the biggest weakness I see in their defense is the linebackers and their ability to cover the pass. They don't really have anyone who can kind of step up and be a real good pass coverage linebacker. And I think that's going to be something, maybe someone will step up and surprise this year, or maybe they'll address it after this year in the draft or in free agency. Another position I'm kind of worried about from them is their defensive backfield, the cornerback specifically. Losing Kendall Fuller, I think, was a pretty big hit for them. Bashad Breeland is pretty good, and they've got a pretty good young guy in what's his name, Charvarius Ward. Can we just talk for a second about the fact that they have 3 cornerbacks named Charvarius, Legarius, and Thacarius? So I think one of those guys has got to be good, right?
Yeah, I always find that hilarious. Like you've said that a couple times, and I laugh every time you say that. It's just funny how like things like that happen.
It's because I usually repeat a joke that's funny until it's not funny anymore.
Which is probably where we're at now with that joke.
Probably. Thanks for being honest.
Now on defense, their biggest weakness is rushing yards allowed from last year. They were 26 in rushing yards allowed. Teams are able to run all over them. And with the running back styles that we see in their division, I mean, the West has Josh Jacobs, Austin Eckler. The Denver Broncos have not only Gordon, but Lindsey and Freeman as well. There's a lot of running backs that are going to cause them trouble. They need to be able to establish dominance in their division at that level, because outside of just their division, You also have to remember they're going to run into problems when they play the NFC South this year, because they're going to run into Christian McCaffrey, Todd Gurley, Alvin Kamara, and the plethora of running backs they have in Tampa Bay. If they don't get this underway and set in stone by week 5 or 6, the back end of their schedule features a lot of good running backs that are going to punish them and can leave them susceptible to an upset loss down the road.
Yeah, and I think that's just we're gonna have to see what comes of that as the season progresses, because last year, for the first few games, like first 5 or 6 games, defense took a while to get going, but the second half of the season they came on very strong. So we'll have to see if that's something that they start off strong this year, or if it's going to take them a while to get up to speed again. But I think this being their second year under Spagnuolo, I think that they should have a stronger start in terms of defense than they did last year. All right. All right, Tyler. Well, we talked about offense, talked about defense. I want to know
special teams.
Special. No, I want to know. I'm going to skip special teams. After 2 years with the Reid and Mahomes at the helm, are these guys? Is the Chiefs are they the new dynasty? Are they going to go and repeat maybe? Do you see them going back to the Super Bowl this year?
I think they have a very good chance of going back to the Super Bowl. Their biggest obstacle right now is themselves. It's all internal. If that defense can prevent teams from dropping 30 plus points on them, they're going to be fine. Because last year we saw, if we're just going over 20 points, that's at least 3 touchdown scores. Counting the playoffs, so 19 games, they allowed 11 games of over 3 scores. The problem with that is that you're expecting your offense to always light it up. And that's not the case. We've seen that with other dynasties, such as, it's kind of a dynasty, but just an offensive powerhouse of like the greatest show on turf and everything, how that's hard to sustain. And then we also have the Patriots, and we see it with other offenses like the Atlanta Falcons, and all these offenses. The Carolina Panthers kind of didn't have that issue in that year they went Super Bowl, but we see the issue of if your team has a bad day on offense, you're screwed, and that can't be the situation. It has to be like a great relationship, like a partnership. They've got to be a couple, the offense and defense, where if one is having a bad day, the other one's got to pick them up. It can't just be the offense is always on a good day. Now, if this defense, which is slightly improving, can prevent that from happening, if they can cut that down from 12 games to, I don't know, like 8 or 9, then yes, I see this team becoming a legitimate dynasty. But we can't just put them on a dynasty pedestal because they have an all-elite young quarterback. They have to have a full, well-rounded team. Andy Reid is the right guy for that. He clearly knows what he's doing. He is exactly what I think of when I think of success in the NFL at coaching. He's one of like the 3 coaches I could always go to say, and I'd just be like, oh, I bet like if he left and went to Jacksonville, they'd be in the playoffs in 2-3 years. Like, I just think that's how good he is.
Yeah, and I think it's gonna be funny in 20 years when our kids will be like, they'll just come across some article on the Wikipedia or something and be like, hey Dad, did you know Andy Reid used to coach the Eagles? Like I think he's gonna become so well known as like the greatest coach in Chiefs history and like win them a bunch of championships that people are gonna forget that he went to the Super Bowl with Donovan McNabb back in the early 2000s. I think people are gonna forget about that, and it'll be kind of like a fun fact for trivia night at the bar and stuff like that.
Not just the Super Bowl, but that Super Bowl capped off like a 4-year window of straight NFC Championship games.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they were a top 4 team in the NFL because of Andy Reid, literally for 4 years straight. And before Andy Reid, the Eagles were almost to the point of irrelevant throughout the 90s in my eyes, until Andy Reid took over and started developing these guys and made somebody like Brian Westbrook look like an all-pro stud. I mean, he made himself look at that, but I'm saying like that guy he found, Donovan McNabb, is highly regarded at that time as one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And he's doing it again here. Like I said, this defense steps up, then yes, I will write them in every season, week 1, as the Super Bowl favorites. But until then, that's a clutch. Because if you look at over in, say, in the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens have just as good of an offense. They just do it differently, but they have a really good offense as well, but they got a better defense. So most times I would take that team just because it's safer.
Yeah, I think I gotta agree with you. I think that as long as the Chiefs defense keeps moving in the right direction, I think they're gonna be close to unstoppable. And I think that they are moving in the right direction. As long as they continue building off of their success and improvement last year, I think it's hard not seeing them returning to the Super Bowl.
So, as usual, team wins the Super Bowl, has a great year. They get 5 primetime games. Let's move into the schedule here. Give me a season prediction. Like 5 primetime games. They're opening the NFL season tonight. As you guys are viewing this, probably by the time you listen to this, they're, in our eyes, going to be 1-0 and have a nice little 10-day break before they go to the Los Angeles Chargers. What is their prediction? What is your prediction for this team in 2020?
Probably 13-3 or 14-2. Maybe they lose one against either the Broncos or the Raiders, and then they've got a pretty tough matchup against the Saints there in Week 15. But I mean, other than that, the Ravens is a pretty tough matchup in Week 3. Other than that, I think they've got a pretty good chance going 13-3. 12-4 for sure, maybe 14-2. I think the absolute like floor, I can't see them, barring any injury to Mahomes or anyone like that, I can't see them getting less than like 11 wins.
I think this team could go undefeated. I really do. I think there's obviously big bumps in the way, but if they get past the Baltimore Ravens, if they get past the New England Patriots, which is, I know they're not the same team anymore, but still, like right there, Baltimore, New England, Buffalo. If they get past those 3 and they're 9-0 at the bye week, they get past that trap game, week 11, they've had a big old bye. Now they're going to Las Vegas to play the Raiders. That's a trap game for me. Tampa Bay, and then week 15 against the Saints. But really, if they can beat Tampa Bay, the Saints, Buffalo, and Baltimore, I could see this team, because those are the places I could see them losing. Those 4 games and the 1 game against the Raiders. So if those 5 games will dictate whether or not they're 13-3 or 16-0. But I do think this offense is that good that it can trump and carry through. Because a lot of these defenses they're playing, I'm sorry guys, they're not going to be able to keep up. I know a lot of people are big on the Chargers defense. I think they're still a year away from being that elite. And honestly, the New England Patriots, they've lost so many guys due to opting out that they might be a shell of themselves from 2019. So really, honestly, I mean, then there's like the New York Jets, the Carolina Panthers, the Miami Dolphins, Atlanta Falcons. I don't see a lot of defenses they're going to struggle with. I really don't. So I could see this team going anywhere from 13-3 to 16-0. I'm not saying they're going undefeated, but I think that they have a legitimate chance of anybody in the league this year.
That's pretty bold, but I gotta respect it. I don't think they'll go undefeated, but I gotta respect the boldness.
And that's going to do it for us here on Second and Short. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening. This has been a great offseason for us, and I'm really excited that we've kind of got the groundwork for our offseason plan, because next year we can hit the ground running with these series we do, and we can have a little more fluff room. Also, be on the lookout. Everybody that's here listening, Chiefs fans, anybody that subscribed, thank you guys very much. We're up a lot of subscribers this past couple of weeks. We will be doing fantasy football updates every Thursday. Every Thursday morning, we're going to be giving you guys not the same stuff everybody else is giving you, because we have different minds and we think differently, but we'll be giving you our takes on the fantasy week ahead. Look for us on also our social media platforms that Aaron will tell you about. We're going to be starting doing some Instagram lives, giving you guys our predictions every week as well.
Check us out on Facebook. We'll be updating every post there. And on Twitter, we try to get some polls going on every once in a while. And of course, Instagram, we have not only like our new episode posts, but we'll post like a news updates, discussion points, like things like that. So hit us up, send us a message, send us an email.
And if you look down below, you can also see where to check out all of our podcasts going forward, If you just want to listen to an audio only version of this, we're on Spotify, we're on Google Podcasts, we're on every other podcast format out there. We've got it. So if you want to just listen to us instead of clicking on YouTube, we're there as well. And that's going to do it for us. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you guys during the season.